And obviously there's a house of the future or a hyperhouse project coming up a little bit in the future that you may sort of get a chance to put more technology into.
Yes.
Now I was curious about, you've spent quite a few years sort of indulgence, given your practice on one side, into looking back on your practice as a PhD, where you sort of spent all your time reflecting on the kinds of things you were doing. So in some senses, virtually everything you've done has been put under the microscope, and you've sort of looked into it and looked at both your intentions and what you got out of it. And then you've also seen sort of patterns of what constitutes your practice today. So what are the elements of your practice, or what is it that you realized through the PhD?
I think the main thing that came to the fore, or there are a couple of things I guess, was this desire to visit change, and this implicit notion that rather than repeat an existing modality, that our projects in our minds offer an opportunity to change modes of doing things, of the design outcome. And that really the texture of the practice has been dealing with the problems invariably that particular kind of position unleashes. And I have, in the PhD reflection process, very much focused on the kinds of dramas and disasters that occur when one insists that things should be done differently, and trying to persuade people that this different modality will be to everyone's benefit. And I think the biggest lessons and the biggest shifts in the practice have been resulted from resistance to the pathway that we've suggested. But then the richest outcomes for our projects have come from the realization that our own clients bring to the table a potential and a set of ideas that are often more challenging and riskier than our own. So that's been and I think the reflection process allowed us to identify that, rather than see this kind of, well, in my own words, chaotic but perturbed a process as being a positive one, not a negative one. Whereas I think I could easily view these perturbations, these resistances, as being impediments rather than moments for real revitalization.
There's an element of risk too in questioning things constantly. You sort of run the risk. One of them is that you have to do twice the amount of work as your competitor, and it also has impacts on how much you can do and how long your projects take. So it's probably not been easy to do the sort of work you do. I don't think that the practice could be described as having taken the most commercially sound course in relation to addressing projects, both in terms of I think Ranulph Glanville made the observation that we tend to bring more to our projects than is strictly required or needed. And I think that that's very true. And I think it comes back to the idea that this notion of perceiving a design project as an opportunity to, or license to explore alternatives and to want to map the ground out in order to see opportunities that might exist that are not necessarily visible at the outset.